Welcome back to another episode of the Optimistic Met Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Osberger. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about games that I went to live that I thought were the best Met moments that I saw live. I thought that would be a good change of pace with the way that the offseason is going. I am going to do an episode of the previous moves that they made, so don't worry about that. We have a lot to get into with that as well. But on today's episode, we're going to go down memory lane as we're going to go through some of the games that I went to that I thought were pretty cool historical moments that I got to witness live that I was lucky enough to go to. Usually you see a lot of great games on TV and you're like, damn, I wish I was there, So these were just a few of the games that I was lucky enough to attend that when you hear these games, when I go through them, you're going to be like, wow, this guy saw some awesome games. I'm going to actually go down memory lane with Shea Stadium, a stadium that a lot of younger fans don't really remember. And for my older audience, just a really fun kind of history lesson of Shea Stadium. So I'm going to dive right in. And I thought maybe we should start all the way to 1999. So this game took place October 9th, 1999. Was Game 4 of the National League Division Series. Now, back then, you only had one wild card team. Okay, so there was no wild card round back then. And we had to face the Diamondbacks. So the Diamondbacks were one of the best teams in the league. And we were the wild card team. So we had to face the number one seed basically in the playoffs that year, which was Arizona. Now, this is the Arizona team that had Randy Johnson, Steve Finley playing in center field. And he actually is going to be remembered for this moment that I wanted to talk about. So the Mets did end up winning this game 4-3. It was a clinching series win for the Mets that took them to the National League Championship Series against Atlanta. We unfortunately fell short against Atlanta that year, but just some bullet points that I thought were pretty cool about this game. So Todd Pratt was starting in this game, backup catcher for the Mets. Mike Piazza didn't play this game. And Todd Pratt comes up in the bottom of the ninth and hits probably one of the biggest home runs in Met history, I would think. Once it, hit off the bat, once the crack of the bat happened and you saw the ball flying into center field, it was one of those home runs where you were kind of cheering it on, right? You were going, come on, keep going, go back. You keep looking at Steve Finley. He's running back at the wall. And this was one of those cool moments in time. So I know you guys all have seen the highlights of this play. If you're a diehard Met fan, you can look it up on YouTube. You can look it up on any website, really. They replay it sometimes on SNY as one of the classic moments of the New York Mets. And once Steve Finley jumped up to try to catch this ball, because it was one of those wall-scraping home runs at old Citi Field, straightaway center field, 410. Everybody got quiet real quick because we thought he caught it. And then you have this memorable moment where I remember seeing Steve Finley jump up, kind of scrape the wall, look into his glove, and just have a look at disappointment. And his shoulders just fell. And the crowd went nuts. Because at that moment, you knew Todd Pratt hit the home run. He started rounding second base, going nuts, fist pump in the air. It was just one of those cool, awesome moments. Me being a 17-year-old kid in the stands, that was pretty awesome. So, again, I thought that this was one of the coolest moments that I saw at that time as a Met fan. I only had, 3 or 4 years of watching baseball. My first playoff game, Shea Stadium with my friends. One of those cool moments that, you're never going to forget. You're never going to forget that, who you were with. And yeah, just one of those really cool moments in Met history. Playoff game, my first one. And just, still to this day, I still think of that as one of the coolest moments as a Met fan. Anytime anybody tells me, what are one of your moments that, your top 5 moments as a Met fan, that's definitely one of those moments. So just really cool to share that one. After the game, though, I remember another cool moment. Every Met fan kind of has these moments when you go to games, when they win a big game. Everybody's walking down the tunnel, down the ramp at Old Shea Stadium, and chanting "Let's go Mets." Place is going nuts. And then some fans started a "Bring on the Braves" chant. And I mean, this it was like a rally. It was so crazy. Gives me goosebumps to this day talking about it. It was just one of those moments where you're like, wow, this is awesome. We're going to beat the Braves now. The hell with the Braves. Bring them on. Uh, Everybody was just pumped up. It was a really cool experience. So, just one of those games. And yeah, then we went on to face Atlanta. Fell short against Atlanta. But this moment in 1999, October 9th, will always live in my head as one of those awesome moments that I'm never going to forget. And, you know, yeah, unfortunately, that was just not a year where we were able to finish it off. That was one of those Cinderella seasons that, we fell short. As Met fans, we all know those games and those seasons, but 1999 was pretty amazing. Was a great season. Following that up, 2000. I'm going to take you down to this game, and this was a regular season game. This wasn't a playoff game, and but still one of those awesome moments that I think every Met fan will remember. It was one of the greatest innings I think I've ever saw. So I'm going to take you back now to June 30th, 2000. And this was the following season. Mets were neck and neck with the Braves for most of the season. So this was smack dab in the middle of the summer. Pennant race, us in Atlanta. And we did beat the Braves in this game 11-8. This is that classic 10-run inning against Atlanta. One of the best games I've saw. As far as going from, the feeling of getting your butt kicked and feeling crappy because it's Atlanta, to then, just be going bananas and going nuts and feeling pumped up like we could take this team and we can go toe to toe. So it was 8-1 after the top of the 8th inning. Braves scored 3 runs in that inning to make it 8-1. And I remember my dad telling me in the stands, all right, are you ready to go? Because, he always wanted to go early at games, especially when we were losing, to beat that traffic by the 7 train. Anybody who's been to Citi Field or Shea Stadium, that 7 train gets packed right after the game. So my dad was always one of those guys that if the Mets weren't in the game, he was going to try to leave early and now that I'm a dad, I kind of know what he was thinking. But yeah, so I actually, luckily, thank God, I was able to convince him to stay, because we would have missed the greatest half inning, I think, in the history of the New York Mets. They ended up scoring 8 straight runs. Nope, 10 straight runs, sorry, to beat Atlanta 11-8. And one of the biggest highlights was Mike Piazza. So after the Mets tied it up 8-8, Mike Piazza comes up with two men on and hits a line drive right down left field, and the crowd goes nuts. Home run. He's running down first base, fist pumps, looks into the dugout. Everybody's going nuts. The stadium is rocking. You can barely even hear yourself screaming. It was so loud. It was just one of those cool moments that, you know, you don't always get to see, right? These great, unbelievable comebacks. And I almost missed it because my dad wanted to go home early. Thank God I convinced him to stay. A fun fact about this game was 9 out of the 10 runs that the Mets scored were with two outs. So imagine it's 8-2, and then we kept tacking on run after run after run, getting base hit, walk, base hit, and it was just one of those cool grinding innings where you're like, all right, we got a shot. We're still alive. Oh my God, we're going to do this. And then Atlanta kept switching relief pitchers. And, it was just one of the most wild half innings, long innings, because back then there was no pitch clock. So it was like a good 30, almost 40 minutes that inning. And it was pretty awesome to experience that. And then Armando Benitez, who everybody knows, got the next three guys out in the top of the ninth. And it was one of the greatest comebacks I think any Met fan that was there could say they ever saw live. This game, to me, is probably one of my most favorite games that I've been to live. And looking back, I've been to so many games that they all blend together. But you never get to see a lot of historic games, right? Like the last two games I just talked about are in the record books as, when you watch SNY and you're watching highlights and you're watching these great moments in Met history, those are the ones you're watching. When there's like a rain delay, they'll pop on one of the Met greatest moments and it's this game, or it's, the playoff game I just mentioned back in 99 with the Todd Pratt home run. Going to as many games as I go to, I only have a handful of these type of games. So, I definitely feel blessed as a sports fan to have witnessed those two games. And the last game on my list, there's a short list of historical games. This one was the most recent and one of the only ones in Citi Field that I could say that I was there live for. It was April 29th, 2022. And those of you who know, that's the famous combined no-hitter that the Mets had. This was an early game in the season against the Phillies. It was a Friday night. A buddy of mine, shout out to Will, gave me a last-minute ticket to this game that afternoon, said, hey, you want to go to the Met game? I said, yeah, sure, why not? So went to the game. Cold as always at Citi Field. You guys know that early season game. So we're up in the upper deck in the outfield, and we don't think anything of it. Tyler McGill is starting this game. And he's pitching pretty good. He always was a guy who would pitch, as every Met fan knows, 3 or 4 innings before getting into trouble in the 5th. So we're like, you know what, as long as he can go 5, hopefully the offense hits. He only had a 3-0 lead. Well, like, hopefully he could hold it and then see what happens. Lo and behold, what we knew was that 4 more relievers would come into the game. That being Drew Smith. Get this name, Joely Rodriguez. Remember that guy? Lefty reliever back then? You had Seth Lugo and Edwin Diaz. And, Edwin Diaz did end up striking out the side in that game. That was one of the highlights of the game. It was really one of those games where it was like every single inning you were on the edge of your seat cheering these pitchers on, getting, they were getting walks, and you were like, oh, just don't give up a hit. And they would get a double play ball, or they would strike out a batter, or or get a big pop up or a soft hit fly ball. Occasionally a guy would make a great diving stop and make a play. But, all in all, it was awesome. Early April game, crowd wasn't that big, but it felt big because of the moment. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I remember sitting in the stands with my buddy, and a couple was walking right past us in the stands, and she mentioned the fact that the Phillies had no hits. Now, anybody who knows baseball knows that that's sacrilege to even talk about a no hitter. But yeah, that was a funny moment in the stands. Everybody kind of groaned and yelled at her. What are you doing? And then the boyfriend had to explain to his girlfriend why that was. So that was pretty funny. Also, you had, myself, every inning with, little prayer hands going, I hope they don't blow this thing. And it was just one of those intense games that, we couldn't even believe we were there. That's how unbelievable it was. It was definitely something I'll never forget. It was a real no-hitter because everybody jokes around about the Johan Santana one not being the real one because, if we did have instant replay, the ball did go over the bag and it was base hit. That infamous Beltran ground ball that went over the bag, but they called it a foul ball. Thank God they did that because the Mets have 2 no-hitters, even though that's nothing to brag about because there's other teams with a lot more, but the hell with them. This is a Met podcast, so we applaud everything that the Mets do here. But yeah, second no-hitter in Met history. They haven't had one since, so I could always brag that I saw the last one. And what was so cool about it was that it was just a random game that I decided to go to. It was nothing that was planned. And I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, I thought that these games were worth just mentioning. I always wanted to do an episode like this, just kind of, be casual and not, in the moment, just trying to, think of the memories and, think of something to talk about with you guys, something to share, something that, games that I always think about and always chat with my friends about, when we're at the water cooler or, at the bar waiting for the game to start. We always bring up these cool memories and, just wanted to share this with you guys. I thought it was cool. Nice little short episode of, the greatest games that I saw live. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will be back discussing next week Bo Bichette and all the new additions to the team. And very excited about that episode. I think that was a slam dunk signing by David Stearns. And also coming up, I wanted to bring up, I'm going to be doing a collaboration podcast, a joint podcast with the Diamond Geezers. If you guys haven't checked out their podcast, it's really good stuff. 4 guys that just talk baseball, Yankee fans, Met fans. So I'm very glad that we're going to be doing that. That's coming up on Saturday. So check that out on their website and also on my channel on YouTube. We're going to be recording it about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully we get it up sometime that weekend. So very excited about that. And that's it for today's episode. So like always, stay amazing, everybody. Let's go Mets. See you next time.